You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZW LP Conroe and 106.1 KZCC LP Conroe, and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl. Tony Lynn Collins and Cheryl Ellsworth Jahani. We are two Texas licensed attorneys, and we are here every Tuesday from 12 to 1 p.m. on 104.5 and 106.1 Conroe's FM. And we're here to answer your legal questions, talk about legal issues, current things, old things, whatever. We know that people want to know about the law. And
Inquiring minds want to know.
That's right. That's right. So we're here every Tuesday, and you can also download the podcast tomorrow from Google Play or iTunes.
I just everybody to YouTube, Google YouTube
Yeah,
and
you
our
can
show.
YouTube it.
And then watch it that way. Mm-hmm. Got some good information. And today, in addition to the other things that we're going to cover with an update on the criminal law, we're going to have a Texas gun law, not a multiple choice, but quiz. And our station producer, manager, owner, Dick, is going to help us. And a lot of these questions are pretty tricky. Do you know your Texas gun law rights? So,
Yeah. Well, very few people do, I think. You know, they just get confused.
We're going to learn them today because Texans, particularly people in Montgomery County, must know.
Right. Okay, good. Good. So, Tony, there was this case, Flowers v. Mississippi.
Before we get to that, we were talking before the show about our historic event that took place, and we were talking about juries, and this case has everything to do with juries.
That's what this is about.
And we were discussing, and sort of in giddy delight, reminiscing about our victory, about how it went. I was just saying that when you have a jury pool, that generally people are pretty fair. If they showed up for jury duty, they're I think they're open-minded. They're civically minded. They didn't try to get out of it. And
right.
They should be kind of fair. And we were talking about how I believed that times they have a change. This isn't like the old movies, like back in 12 Angry Men and
was all white.
All the movies
all
where
white men.
It was all white men. And if you were, they've made a gazillion movies about it where the poor black guy or minority person was improperly convicted because of prosecutorial misconduct or because of where they lived. And I was like, well, things have kind of changed a little bit. And I was thinking about our own juries here. But that brought up where you were telling me that things didn't completely change. And we're talking about gender here more than, I think, a racial issue. So what we have, I let you take off from there. What did you observe that I didn't observe when we were picking a jury for our assault case over here?
Oh yeah, it was a case. We went to trial. I think this was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
It was a while back.
Yeah,
and I was just like, "Hody do! It's just a little trial. I'm working on a brief. I'll be there with you for a minute. No big deal. I'll leave."
It was my client, and Tony was helping me. Thank God she showed up to help me pick a
Give
jury.
me all that credit. I'm loving it.
And it's her birthday. Happy birthday, Tony.
Yeah. Me and Harry Potter.
She needs credit on her birthday.
And Stephanie Seymour, that Victoria's Secret model, the only two people that share my birthday. But also Amanda Lyles, Barbara Trotter, and I have a whole bunch of friends of mine that share a birthday with me, if that's not the craziest thing.
Yeah.
But no celebrities.
Yeah. So anyway, I had this client, and it was the weirdest thing. He and his wife had gotten into a fight. She found some dirty picture. They were separated, and she found a picture she didn't like on his phone. And so she assaults him. She throws the phone at him in the middle of the night and stuff. They're separated, living in the same house, but in different rooms.
Now they are.
Yeah. Well, now they're divorced. But so anyway, they charged him with domestic violence and assault and all that stuff, and they wouldn't drop the charges. They wouldn't. The case went from one prosecutor to another. This was in Montgomery County.
They can't drop the charges if it looks like there might be probable cause.
I don't mean drop the charges. They wouldn't give him anything he could agree to. Nothing.
Okay. And he didn't have a prior criminal record,
Nothing.
right? So he couldn't they didn't offer a pretrial intervention or anything?
Nothing. They wouldn't offer him anything, and it went from one
I didn't know
prosecutor
that.
to another. So finally, we find out, we couldn't figure it out. What is going on? Why won't they even talk to me? So we went to trial because he couldn't agree.
You have to if they're not going to, particularly if there's a good explanation for why this fight took place.
Exactly.
And that reminds me, I think that when you're in a situation where you're just dating and you want to test the disposition of your spouse, and I think maybe you even did this, Station Manager Dick. I'm not sure, but I'm suggesting it's just kind of out there. But I was thinking about it just now that maybe guys or girls should put a phony picture of something on their phone to test the response of their potential spouse, because particularly if it's completely innocent, like it was a test. And you did this with your wife, right? You put some phony pictures of Victoria's Secret models.
I'm sure he did.
On your
No,
phone, so she thought,
didn't do
and then you
that.
got to see if she would trust you when you tell her that this was all a mistake. But that reaction is very important.
It really
this
is.
girl went crazy.
She went crazy.
Just loony, and because of something that could have been. Maybe it was. Maybe it was legitimate. Maybe it wasn't. But they needed to sit down and talk about it and work through that, like you do with all obstacles that are created in life for you to grow from them. And man, he should have done that before they got married. That girl was a great liar. She was crazy. She was out to
believable.
destroy him over something that was. I think, as I recall, it was just innocent.
We remember, Tony, we called the case the Fatal Attraction case.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, the prosecution wouldn't give him anything that he could plead to. I mean, lower it. They wouldn't do anything.
Reduce the charge.
So-
Something.
right.
They weren't working with you. They wanted to go to trial.
They wanted to
That's
go to trial,
crazy.
so we ended up going to trial. And Tony showed up, thank God, to help me
I was
select
just going
a
to
jury.
stop in and be like, here, I'll tell. I was just going to be your eyes.
So-
when you pick a jury, you always need a second set of eyes to look if
Right.
anybody hates you out there because you're too busy with your paperwork.
Right, and asking questions and interacting.
And that
with
helps because you've got
potential
things people that just
jurors.
like, because they remind you of, it could be your client or you. Some juror may see you and somebody that is reminding them of historically, which is why you have voir dire. And you can tell they don't like you.
Right.
But maybe you can't tell, but they're making the roll in your eyes when you're not looking. But
Right.
that person sitting next to you
is watching.
I will grab somebody out in the hall. Can you pick a jury with me?
Yeah. So anyway, we were asking questions to see if they were biased and all of that. You can vet those guys out if they're biased based on certain factors. And we asked this one question. Finally, at the very end, Tony said, "Okay,
Because the judge said, do you have any more questions? And I was looking, I thought, we just don't have enough here. And I was looking at all the responses we got. And I thought,
and we wanted, this is important, we wanted some men on the jury.
we wanted all men because
Yeah.
we thought men would identify with this crazy fatal
Yeah.
attraction gal.
We thought they would help us.
Yeah, and I thought, but we need to, and I knew this, and it was because I had done a bunch of assault cases, and I thought, we have got to ask this question. We have no idea in conservative Montgomery County,
Right.
with this particular jury pool, how they're going to react to this, even though we know the girl was Looney Tunes. She was a great actress.
She
we had no
was.
idea how our guy was going to come across because he was a little bit nervous. Of course, he was
He
being
was
falsely
very
accused.
nervous,
Well,
right.
he wasn't being falsely accused. He did have some bad pictures on the phone or something that wasn't.
Well,
his wife
but
wasn't happy
that's
about.
completely
But
different
that's
than
not
being
a
tried for
crime.
strangulation.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what-
and so we asked this question: who of you, at the very end, who of you thinks it's wrong under any circumstance for a man to hit a woman?
Yeah.
And every man in the whole
every
voir
man.
dire
That
pool
was 50% or
raised their
more.
hands.
We couldn't
And
believe
Tony
it.
and I just looked at each other.
And that
like,
was we had to
"Oh."
fight for that question because the prosecutors were like, objection, objection. And they were finding every reason in the book not for us to ask that question.
Yeah.
And I thought, it's just like everything else in life. That's the question you were supposed to ask.
Right.
Like I was just telling you this morning before we got here, I had asked for opposing counsel on one of my many cases that I'm working on to grant me. I was asking them to allow a motion to go in unopposed, so we wouldn't have to argue about it before the court. And I thought for sure they're going to grant this because obviously I'm going to get this. It's the first time I've asked for a continuance, and the judge is not going to say no. It's just going to be a waste of money. And I was stunned when I got like 5 days later an email saying just a short little quip saying we're opposed, and I'm like, and immediately I was like, I was doing the victory dance. I thought we have won. I mean, I know that because that reaction was so out of nowhere. When I'm going to be on. For all the reasons that they should have granted this.
Right.
They should have just said we're not opposed to it. And then I had this feeling of, yes, so sometimes no is good. You
Right.
want that no because it lets you know what's
Yeah,
going
so
on.
the prosecutors were fighting us.
And then we got our question out
And
there.
then we got our question out there. Every man raised his hand. Tony and I just went, oh,
stunned.
And so we got an all-woman jury where my client was the only guy in the room.
It was because the court was all women.
He was the only guy in the room, an all-woman
a lot
jury.
of estrogen charged.
Yeah, and we got a unanimous not guilty verdict on that.
And the women of the jury told
Were
us after
fair.
the fact. They said that they were kind of wavering on it.
A couple of 'em.
Yeah. But then when they saw the facts as we presented them, but I forgot who told us this. I don't know if it wasn't the people that stayed around and watched that wasn't on the jury, one of the guys, but they said they absolutely would have convicted. Under no circumstances would they have allowed a man to touch a woman, put their hands on her for any sort. And this woman had to have, well, first of all,
She had
it didn't even
bruises.
happen.
She had
made
bruises,
it up.
but he had bruises too. And,
She
and
made
those
them
women,
up.
She did, and those women, I remember.
They did not they did not correlate to what she said happened. She was lying.
Yeah, she was lying. But I remember when we got all women, my client's family was freaking out. How could you let this happen? We don't want women on the jury. I was like, listen, guys, you need to trust them.
I loved that
They
family.
I do too. I love that.
After I got to talking with them, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I helped you because they were people that helped me on some things I was doing later.
Yeah.
You never know.
But I told them those women have fathers, they have husbands, they have sons. They're not stupid.
They're trying to do.
They're smart.
Yeah,
They're gonna listen and they care.
But they also are well trained because these men were like, you never touch a woman. But women lie. These bad women that lie about assaults because they're mad, they're vengeful, there's a retribution. How dare you do this?
Well, she was trying to get back together with him, and he wasn't getting back together.
She
with her.
wanted to.
So she's
she
gonna
was
get him
doing
back.
the fatal attraction. She was
Yeah.
pretending like it happened to sort of blackmail him into keep saying married and having a baby with her. We have sex, we have a baby, and then I will drop these charges. That's reverse, discrimination. It happens a lot too.
Oh yeah.
So we were talking about that ago because the case that we're going to talk about today had to do with
This
jury
one.
selection, and I can't emphasize enough people that go to trial and do go to trial. If you're not guilty, go to trial. If you're not guilty and you feel like there's some question about how the jury's going to feel, or you just don't have the money, you don't have the energy, it doesn't mean enough to you for all the litany of reasons that you don't go to trial, then do something else. But trial is there; it's in our Constitution for you to get justice, and a lot of times you don't. The justice system's kind of crazy. Sometimes you don't, and sometimes it's because it's a question you didn't ask,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's a question you asked too many. But what's going on?
Well,
with our case
listen
here?
to this. This is Flowers versus Mississippi, June 21, 2019, most recent decision. In 1996, this guy, Curtis Flowers, a black man, was accused of killing 4 people in a furniture store in Winona, Mississippi. He had been tried 6 separate times before a jury for murder by the same white prosecutor.
6 separate trials.
Flowers was convicted in the first 3 trials, but those convictions were all overturned by the Mississippi Supreme Court due to prosecutorial misconduct and racial discrimination against black prospective jurors in the jury process selection.
Which is crazy because I didn't think that was still that prevalent, but I guess it is.
Well, in Mississippi, but yeah, no, it is. It is. And also, I mean, I'm just going to throw this in quickly. If you want a good jury, make sure that you have black people on it and make sure you have women on it. Those are the best.
So true.
The more
people
balanced,
you least expect.
Yeah,
It's so
the more
true.
balanced a jury is, the better.
I mean, you still have to vet them out. You still have
result.
to ask them questions about has this happened to you before and get their experience. You're married a police officer and all those things that go with it. But yeah, and you never can tell. And that would be if before law school, before I even started doing jury trials and what have you, I would have guessed that.
Well, I think they're just fair. I think they know what it's like to be victimized, and they listen.
You do
Well,
have to have somebody that has
clearly.
a similar experience to your client. The problem is a lot of times you've got a client who truly is a felon, and you can't get felons on your jury, and we're never going to let that happen, even though we've got a lot of liberals that want it right now up in Washington.
That's so true. Okay, so listen.
Squad.
Flowers' 4th and 5th trials ended in mistrials due to hung juries. Okay, so I mean, there's something going on here with these facts, right? Or with what he did. In his 6th trial, Flower was convicted and sentenced to death, but appealed to the Mississippi Supreme Court, arguing that the state violated Batson v. Kentucky in exercising peremptory strikes. That's what
Right,
we were trying to
what
figure.
we're talking about.
Peremptory strikes against black.
And those are those strikes that you get that are just, you get to have them no matter what.
No
But
matter
it
what.
can't be for racial or discriminatory purposes. It has to be a strike for any other reason.
Just any other reason, yeah. Exercising peremptory strikes against black prospective jurors. The Mississippi Supreme Court affirmed the conviction in a narrow 5-4 decision, but the case eventually made its way to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Right. Because that is a good question. It's a law school question. They tell you your preemptory strikes are anything. Anything. You can just get rid of the first 3 if it's a misdemeanor, or the first 6 or whatever. But and then you can actually, I didn't know if you knew this, but you can actually get more of those if you argue like how the sides are aligned. But you can get there. You can play around with it and you get a lot.
Like if you've got 3 defendants.
Right. But I had always thought that preemptory strikes will allow you to just take them right off the top for any reason, but no.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell us about it.
In a 7-2 ruling, the Supreme Court on June 21st, the court reversed the conviction, concluding that the white prosecutor who handled the case from the beginning had violated Flowers' constitutional rights by intentionally removing African Americans from the jury in the 6th trial in 2010. In all of Flowers' trials combined, man, they just wouldn't let him go, right? In all of Flowers' trials combined, the effort to rid the jury of black individuals strongly suggests that the state wanted to try Flowers before a jury with as few black jurors as possible.
Yeah, but how did they get rid of, how were they able to prove that? Because if you were to put the prosecutor on voir dire, he's going to say, no,
It's a pattern. You know, Tony, you go back and show it with the pattern.
Oh, the pattern
But
for this
listen
one.
to what Brett Kavanaugh said. This is what Brett Kavanaugh said. I already read part of it. The state's relentless, determined effort to rid the jury of black individuals strongly suggests that the state wanted to try Flowers before a jury with as few black jurors as possible, and ideally before an all-white jury. I mean, that's like,
you know what? If they hadn't tried it 6
archaic.
times, they've been fine. But yeah, that's you said the first 3 were convictions, the next 3 were hung, and the last
they were
one
overturned. There were convictions.
I'm thinking there's a lot of evidence supporting this guy might have been guilty.
Or the opposite.
But are they going back again? What happened?
I know. They just overturned it.
So they overturned
It doesn't say what
that means
they
he's going back for
actually
7.
did. I hope not.
They're going back. Yes, they're not letting this go. They already did. They've tried it so many times. They know all the facts by the back of their hand.
But it went all the way up to the
like a
Supreme
tennis
Court.
match.
That prosecutor should be embarrassed and humiliated.
You know what? I know a lot of prosecutors, and they are rarely embarrassed or humiliated. For
no
some reason,
kidding.
they're like, we're
They're
doing it. We
unembarrassable.
are going to get justice no matter what it takes. And if we have to go with 7 times, and I guarantee that's going back again.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I
But you know
hate
what? We're going to follow up on that case and find out what the facts were.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of interesting to me.
Yeah.
Okay. So Dick was saying that we are going to have to take a break.
Okay. All right. Well, okay, guys. We'll be right back. We're just kind of talking about some Supreme Court cases, and we're going to get to some gun law. We'll be right back after the break. The Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl.
Second Saturday Divorce Workshop provides unbiased information to help you understand your options and move forward with your life. This divorce workshop is for you if you are contemplating divorce, in the process of divorce, already filed for divorce, or post-divorce. You will explore the emotional, legal, and financial aspects of divorce from professionals who have guided others through divorce. For more information on this divorce workshop, contact SecondSaturdayWoodlands.com or call 832-375-0900.
Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show. With monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the message line at 936-647-3776 to take your first step into the radio world.
Hispanic Chamber Connections with Dr. Carlos Sanchez, President of the Woodlands Conroe Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, featuring event announcements, member highlights, and more. Tuesdays at 1 p.m., broadcasting from the heart of Conroe, Texas on irlonestar.com and Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1.
For those of you who like your partners, your gumbo, and your music salty, well, we're here to help with the music. Julian Shea here, host of Lone Star Country Nights Thursday, your weekly dose of roots and Americana and all the music that makes this part of the country special. We stir in Western swing, honky-tonk, Zydeco, Texas blues, outlaw country, and put a pinch of red dirt, and then we smoke it over a slow fire. Then listen to the results Thursday nights on Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 and worldwide at irlonestar.com.
Did you know there are more than 790 abused and neglected children currently in foster care in Montgomery County? Will you help make a difference? I'm Allie Stevens with Casa Child Advocates of Montgomery County. We train and support volunteers to be the voice of children in the foster care system. Kids are removed from their home because of abuse and neglect, and we need volunteers just like you to advocate for these children. To learn more about becoming an advocate, please visit CasaSpeaksForKids.com. That's CasaSpeaksForKids.com.
Don't miss Lone Star Community Radio on TV and YouTube. Our talk show and music shows are featured on Our City TV, Suddenlink Channel 12, and have their own YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to keep up with posted shows and comment on them below the video.
Hey guys, this is Connor.
This is Dick.
This is Chris.
And we're with the Ticket Stub Podcast every Thursday live at noon on 104.5 and 106.1 FM in the Conroe area. Also, anytime at irlonestar.com. You go to irlonestar.com/TTS. You can find all of our social media.
And don't forget, we give away 2 tickets to the Grand Theater on every show.
If you like movies and you like complaining or celebrating anything that has to do with the silver screen, check out the Ticket Stub Podcast and join us every Thursday at noon o'clock on Lone Star Community Radio.
We have the safest food supply in the world. Strict laws and regulations restrict the usage of hormones, antibiotics, and pesticides within our food supply. Production agriculture practices and technologies such as the use of GMOs, which is not any more or less risky than conventional crop production, has allowed American farmers to produce more food on less acres in environmentally sound ways. Find out more online at pathtotheplate.tamu.edu. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make lives better.
Don't forget to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play or Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM. That's Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1. If you are on the computer, bookmark irlonestar.com as your internet radio station. A Lone Star Community Radio, broadcasting 24/7 from the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas.
Welcome back to the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl. We are here talking about all different sorts of things. You know, Tony, I don't know if I told you this. I think we did, but that CBD oil is legalized. Somebody said that came straight from the top. That came from Trump. But House Bill 1325 legalizes hemp production, as you know.
We talked about that on the last show.
Yeah,
right?
but the CBD oil products. And so now, you know, my daughter went to the dog show in Houston, downtown Houston on Sunday, and they were selling CBD oil with.
But what I forgot, CBD
it's
oil
got
is the stuff
THC.
that's legal now, right?
Yeah, it's got THC in it. Interesting.
Well, it's just like when you go buy your paint cans at Home Depot and they still card you, even though you're, elderly. You can't be over.
Do they really?
Yes. Well, they don't card you because it's just like, being a notary is if they can identify that you are higher than the age without any question, they're not going to ask you for your driver's license. But anyway, all right. So the hemp, you had an interesting thing you told me about court. You were in court last week. And
Oh, yeah.
you were
and
talking
some
about
attorneys were talking.
Yeah. So I'll tell our listeners about that. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
That's our word today. Interesting.
Yeah. So now, because of hemp production has been legalized, we've talked about it for the last 2 shows, because it's been legalized, now they have to test marijuana to see how much hemp is in it. And before, with these minor cases, like 2 ounces or less, minor possession cases, they just kind of assumed. And now people are saying, wait, I don't know, it doesn't have that much THC, that's legal. This attorney was saying there's not a lab in the state that does that kind of testing. Remember, Dick, we were talking about Ligon and what you'd said about him? And then after, I think during the break, it came up as how much money does the state spend on testing marijuana for its level of THC?
Testing everything
to
for
see
that
if it's
matter.
hemp. Yeah, right. To see if it's hemp or it's actual marijuana. And this attorney was saying that there's not a lab in this state that actually tests for that. And then I was watching the news, and it said that now, because of that, Harris County is dropping all the.
Is that why, though? Because of testing cost? I didn't think that was the reason why. I thought they were
Yeah.
dropping.
You know, what's funny is we have an officer show called Crime Scene Today. And they were talking more about homicides and rape kits, but I asked about the whole testing world
We are
of
the hip
officers.
place to go.
And what I gathered from
Knowledge.
them saying that depending on the severity of the charge, there's only certain places that are in the state of Texas that will allow it to be processed to be presented in a court of law.
That makes sense.
So you can't go, like, for example, for a rape kit or a THC kit and all those things, you can't just go to the local tester and then
Like
bring that
E-Time
evidence
Labs.
into court. It
Like
has to
Montgomery
be,
County Crime Lab, they
it
would.
has to be an authorized, and especially depending on the level of charge. That's why everything is shipped to the state of Texas or
Oh,
to
okay.
like Austin to do it, and the state has to approve it.
Oh, okay.
And
That does
then-
make sense.
And that's why
That's almost like when we were talking about for DWIs and when the officer wants to get a warrant and they won't get a warrant during the week anymore for misdemeanors because it's just not cost effective. Too many of the prosecutors were asking for, but the same thing. It was a cost weighing deal.
But it was interesting to learn the A to Z of the process because of the costs and because of the time.
That makes perfect sense
And-
because we're like everybody's going to be dragging hemp, quote hemp, around, and it's really marijuana. But I would think that there's going to there would have to be some rationale behind this particular, and we're going to have Representative Toth talk about that. This House bill they passed so that they're not testing. But you were saying that they can't test it. So if they can't test it, that means you could drive around with.
Well,
400
it's
pounds
just
of
created,
marijuana.
it's like we were talking about on our last show, it's created this huge problem. And so I saw in the news that Harris County is dropping those cases, and I think that's why they're dropping them.
I think they're dropping it because they have a program where if you do the pretrial intervention for pot, because they had way too many people, everybody in the world apparently, well, not everybody, but a majority of people that were being stopped had marijuana in their car, and they were being hauled into court.
Yeah.
And there was a bond.
Arrested.
They couldn't afford the bond. They were all, too young for whatever reason it was. They had enough money to get pot, but not a bond. And they were clogging our system up on something that was so minor and legal in a number of states that for the amount that they were being charged with, and I had a lot of clients who were being charged with like nothing. It would just wreck all of my cases because I'm like, why did you have pot? Could you
Tony,
just-
the docket, the other day, there were 120 people on the docket in a court I was in here in Montgomery County. 70%
2% or
of
less
them.
marijuana?
Yeah, possession, minor.
Yeah.
I mean, like less than 2%.
Right.
I mean, the problem is...
that's a really clogging Harris County, and so they came up with this plan that that we're going to do a different program. If you have less than 2 ounces, then that you won't even be arrested. You will be. This is like 2 or 3 years ago. I don't think it's changed though. You will go, but you have to show up for court, and they're going to put you into a program. And the program has a bunch of fees involved with it.
Well, see, that's what bothers me. That's what
But that's
bothers
like
me.
the pretrial intervention. If you screw up on this program, and everybody that's smoking pot apparently cannot do this program.
Well, yeah, 'cause they don't
and then
wanna
they're
quit smoking pot.
adjudicated guilty of having pot.
Oh, yeah.
Now they've got a drug charge because they can't follow the rules.
Right. That's not right. I think that's wrong.
But
that's
I think
wrong.
that's what's going on with this. They're like changing it so that you can do this plan.
Okay. So you're thinking that they really didn't just dismiss it.
No.
They just entered
no.
in.
Otherwise, they'd be legalizing pot over in Harris County, and they're not going to do it.
Well, I was talking to my
different
son
plan. It's
about
money-
this.
it's
I
money
was-
generating
That's what my son
and
was
money
saying.
saving.
Yeah, my
Yes.
son Samuel. He was saying the
Resources.
problem is he was listening to somebody talk a couple of years ago, and it's a money generating thing.
Yeah,
and
but we
there's
need to get
no
somebody
way.
over from Harris County or Montgomery County that can actually talk to us, and we'll have them on our show to say what from because we're just guessing here, but that's logically what it is.
Oh,
to
we're
tell
not
us
guessing.
what the logic would tell us what the actual, maybe even
The revenue?
Rob or
The revenue?
Mr. Ligon.
That
yeah,
the
to find out
county
why
makes?
they do that and what their process is on something really small like that, the 2%, 2 ounces or less of marijuana, because that is so prevalent and it does clog our systems up, and it is a money generator for attorneys. But it's
Well, Tony, listen, I have a client who was driving down the road, pulled over. I may have talked about him last week. Pulled over because he wasn't using his blinker. Then the cop comes up and says, "Wait, I smell marijuana. Get out of the car." She arrests the guy.
They always say they
he
smell
goes
it.
to jail.
I wish we
she
could record
finds
smells.
Yeah, she finds this tiny amount, like the size of a quarter, of marijuana in his center,
Which probably she couldn't smell. obviously.
center console. So as a result of that, the guy gets arrested, goes to jail, has to get an attorney. I didn't charge him hardly anything because I felt sorry for him. Their offer is 9-month deferred adjudication, $600 court cost,
That's just the first
$600
offer.
fines. No, it's not. No, it's not. I went round and round with this girl. $600 fine, $200 to $400 court costs. Let's see, DOEP class, 16 hours, 24 hours of community service.
We do not like pot smokers here in Montgomery County. Do not do it.
Well, no.
Pot
If 90%, 80% of your kids are smoking pot, then those laws have made 80% of those kids criminals. They need to change those laws because that's not right.
It isn't right.
And I don't smoke pot and stuff like that, but anything that criminalizes a majority of your citizens is a bad law. It's a bad law.
It's hard for. I'm doing very few pot cases these days. I'm doing a lot more immigration cases, which that's a good segue from an immigration case because I'm just briefly going to talk about my experience in immigration court. And when I do cases for other types of charges in crimes, also civil, different cases, you can actually go in the court and you can watch and kind of see how the court behaves, and you can listen to the judge coming down with what their sentence is if there's an agreed.
Were you over at the new center in Montgomery County?
Yes, but it's the same in all of them, even when it was the older one. But this is just I'm doing because there's so much more immigration. There's so many more immigration cases available because it's up here in Conroe, and I'll pick up and I'll do some for some of my Houston attorney immigration friends just to do their bond hearings and what have you. You get a lot more exposure if that's not what you do as your primary line of practice. And so the problem with the immigration law is you can't watch the hearings because it is so crowded. There is so many immigration hearings going on, and immigration bond hearings and their master hearings, you don't get a court appointed because I think we talked about this before. It's not considered criminal, even though they broke the law coming over or whatever the reason is they're there. It doesn't fall into the gambit or under the umbrella of being criminal, and so you don't get a court appointed attorney. You're on your own if you want to stay in this country and you're not here legally and you're at one of those bond hearings.
Wow.
And,
Really?
and you can imagine there are so many people that are going to get this hearing, and they're getting a hearing because they got picked up for something else. It's not people like, I crossed the border.
What did they get picked up for?
Well, you name it. It's a litany
Everything?
of things. It's
Drunk
generally
driving?
people that are being picked up for the
Not
same.
using their blinker?
Yes, it's generally people that are being picked up for some crime, and then they find out that they're not here legally. They don't have their ID on them, and they get hauled over to the ICE holding facility, which is over here in Conroe, and they have it on Hillbig. It's got the driver's license place, and then the next, if you drive down that street to that dead end, you're going to see the taxidermy place, and then there's the Montgomery County Jail, and the next one I think
Is that where the crime lab is back
yeah,
there?
the crime lab's on the other side of the street, all that. So it's almost like Law Alley as you drive down. You've got DPS, and then you've got the county, and then you drive a little further, and you've got the Montgomery County Mental Health Facility, and you've got the juvenile. It's all right down there, right? And so, but if you go a little bit further, you get to the federal. The federal is the Joe Carley Detention Center for federal people that are being detained for a number of reasons. It's not just immigration. In fact, it's primarily other than immigration. It's a federal charge breach. They're being held because they're waiting for trial, or they're being held because that's where they're going to do their time, or they're getting ready to be transferred to a federal detention area. And so if you go all the way to the end, that's the new. What do they call it? It's the Montgomery County Processing Center, but it's the ICE facility. And I think they're still using the ICE facility that's over there by the airport, but I don't know that for sure because I'm never down there. I'm always over here at the ICE, the new one they built. Beautiful facility. It's new. It's got courts. It's clean. I really like the whole layout. Whoever designed it did a really good job. So anyway, when you go in there, you got to go through the metal detector and all that stuff, and you go up to the hearing area. And attorneys can't watch other attorneys, and even family can't watch. If you come down there to watch your loved one that maybe shouldn't even be in the ICE holding facility, maybe they were here, they've got a visa and they were improperly taken in, but this is your chance to get that out, right? And so when you go in, you have to wait as an attorney in another kind of holding area. It's not kind of, it is a holding area where you do your filing and what have you. And there's all these doors. It's like Get Smart. You're locked in as you go. You've got to have one of the ICE facility people to unlock it and let you out. So you finally get in there, and there's only enough room for like 4 attorneys because there's so many immigrants waiting to be processed for their bond hearing to come up. Okay, so you get in there, and we were talking about this earlier today. It's kind of funny. The more you watch, the more you can kind of see what flies and what doesn't. And there's the same, federal immigration judges. It's just like any other court. You've got judges that are on the bench and they're hearing it, but you get used to them because you see them ruling a certain way all the time. And so I went in, and the reason I'm saying this is because it's twofold. One is that you go in there, and they've got this propensity of using only letters and code chapter numbers to reference what they're talking about and what they're ordering, which is so frustrating because, I'm like someone that knows Spanish, but I know Spanish by the book, and I should know better, but I'm learning it because I'm being exposed to a lot more with all my immigration clients. But you go in there, and if you don't hear the lingo on how it's commonly used, you really don't know what's going on. And I have to stop all the time and just say, okay, what does EWI stand for? What is a Chapter 42A? All that you can hear the facts, but you can't tell what the result is because they're using it in code.
Oh gosh!
And I'm going to make a public request to all immigration courts and any other court for that matter that use the 3 letters to reference things to please use plain English language because I have no idea. I know that EWI stands for entry without identification. Why do they just say that? They got stopped at the border. They didn't have an ID on them and said it's just like that. What is that? The DOEP or
DOEP?
Yeah, the DOEP. That what does that stand for again? It's a drug optional something.
Yeah, I just read it the other day, but I can never remember what it stands for.
But because you hear it enough, that's what it is. It's a drug testing deal. So, but I will say this, and it's the last thing I'm going to say about the immigration stuff. When these people get up there, attorneys and people because they don't have attorneys, a lot of them are representing themselves, which is really bad because they're not even citizens. But if honesty, they get bonds. People get bonds a lot if they're not here legally. It's almost bad because they're crossing the border, getting thrown in the clink, and it's like now they always say I want to be there for asylum, or I want to get a bond. It's kind of frustrating because the people that are coming through legally, or the people that are asking to come through legally, are now being pushed to the back of the line. But these people are getting a bond and they're here, and now they can stay until their next hearing. Well, that's kind of not really where I was going down. What the rabbit trail I was going down here. If you're talking to in any court setting to a judge and you're asked a question and you don't know the answer, but you think if maybe you bend the truth a little bit, or you think your attorney wants you to say this or whatever it may be, if you bend the truth or you don't know but you want to answer because you want to make it your people pleaser, I want you to get that little conscience that's in your heart or in your head and remember to say nothing. Speaking to somebody that always says too much, say no, say I don't know, or say nothing at all. Unless they say you've got to answer that, the jury.
Right.
This is not something that you can say nothing to, and the judge will let you know. I want an answer. He did that yesterday with another. He said I need an answer. Neither the attorney nor the guy wanted to answer it because they didn't know what the right answer would be. The right answer, we're going to take this from President Clinton, is I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't recall. So don't lock yourself into a box because there was a guy there yesterday and he had a criminal. He had been here for like 20 years. He had a visa, but he's getting his visa yanked because he was stopped for possession of cocaine in a club. And he was going to get his bond. There's no question about that because he didn't have any criminal history. He had a good job. Everything was great. He was going forward. He was there with his high-priced attorney just to get a bond so he could get out and go fight his case, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and if you've got a case even on appeal, that's not considered a conviction. So remember that too. People that go into court, having an appeal opened is a good thing. So you want to keep fighting for your rights if you are truly innocent or whatever the case may be.
So what did this guy? Did he put his foot in his mouth?
The judge said, "Well, tell me about it." It was such a casual conversation between the government prosecutor and the judge, and this guy who had a translator. I don't know why he didn't speak English after being here 20 years, but whatever. He was
so he'd have no excuse when they threw him back in jail.
Well, the bottom line was he had told them his canned response was, "Hey, we went to a club. This guy was kind of acting crazy, and he said, 'Here, can you hold this for me?' And then there was a raid, and the police came in and I had, like 2 ounces of cocaine in my pocket. And of course, that's far-fetched. That's baloney. But on the other hand, he wasn't guilty yet. And this had not been tried in that court. They didn't have the facts to try that case. This was to get him a bond so he could get out, right?
Right.
But they kept asking him questions. And he went on, instead of saying, I don't know, I don't remember, I want to take the fifth, whatever. It's really hard to take a fifth in a bond hearing because it's not a criminal setting. So it's a little bit different. But he should have said, I don't know. If he didn't want to lie and he really had cocaine on him, he should have said, I don't remember, or I don't know, or, just said anything but that. Instead, he said, well, yeah, he handed me the cocaine. And so the judge says, well, you had possession, and I don't know criminal laws, but since you had possession, and I think that's what that means, I'm going to deny your bond. So this guy that's been here for 20 years has now been denied a bond because he said too much. He should have just said, I don't know, or his attorney his attorney didn't vet him and tell him, only say, we're going to talk about your case, and this is what, I don't want you to lie, but this is not the court that's trying this case, so this is what I need you to think about.
Yeah,
right.
right.
And instead, he was just sort of like, da, 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 da. So bottom line is, don't say too much. Listen to your attorney. If in doubt, say nothing.
And attorney, talk to your clients. Okay, Tony, we're going to take a quick break, and we're here just talking about different kinds of laws and immigration court. We're going to take a break, and we will be right back.
Don't forget to download the Lone Star Community Radio app for your Google Play or Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM. That is Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1.
Path to the Plate is a research-based education program that helps consumers understand how their food choices impact their health by making the connection to agriculture. Learning about how food is grown and produced, and how consumers can make better food choices for themselves and their families, Path to the Plate is all about dispelling myths and misconceptions. Find out more online at pathtotheplate.tamu.edu. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Hey, Montgomery County and online listeners. Thank you so very much for checking out Jazzy Vibes with Soul. What? You haven't done so yet? Well, you've got to tune in. Hi, I am the host of Jazzy Vibes with Soul, Miss CeCe Holmes, and I invite you to check us out every Friday and Saturday from 7 until 9 p.m., where you will get the best in old school R&B and, of course, a little smooth jazz to make it jazzy. So tune in. That's right, tune in every Friday and Saturday right here on Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 FM, or worldwide at irlonestar.com.
Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show. With monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast. Create your first YouTube channel and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776.
Welcome back to the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl. Tony was just telling us about immigration court. Wow, Tony, that sounds unbelievable. So I think this is an interesting new law. It's effective immediately. SB 306 expands the ability of officers to release individuals who are publicly intoxicated in lieu of arresting them.
They should do that all the time anyway. But okay.
It brings up so many questions. The fact that they had to make a law for this.
In JP court but I can't, unbelievable. We actually went to trial. These really rich people from Dallas were at the Woodland Center after a concert, and I guess.
Well, wait. Tell us that story, but let me read this first, okay? Because I want to hear that. Expands the ability of officers to release individuals who are publicly intoxicated in lieu of arresting them. In addition to releasing them to a responsible adult or substance abuse program, officers may now release them to a facility to sober up under supervision.
A sober facility.
So now, what were you saying about this? I mean, this law brings
is
up so many things in my
interesting.
mind.
Yeah. Well, first off, it's a Class C misdemeanor if you're public intoxicated. That doesn't mean you can't. It's not driving. You are simply out in public and you are intoxicated. That is a crime, a Class C. And typically,
And public is not your backyard.
right? Public is. I'll tell you what. A lot of women that get in fights with their spouses or their boyfriends, or cat fights. Basically, two women are involved and they're outside of a bar. That's when these public intoxication arrests take place because
Right.
they're really trying to charge them with something lower than
Assault
something
or-
that's in the misdemeanor court. They're keeping him a JP to making it a Class C ticket kind of thing. So they're
Mhm.
trying to be nice, but they're trying to keep them separated. But that's not what happened in this particular case. If the way and I know all about it because I actually did a trial. You do not do trials on Class C tickets generally.
You did a trial for public intoxication?
Yes, for two rich people from Dallas.
Oh, gosh,
Okay, so
what
it's a
happened?
funny story.
I'm from
and,
Dallas.
And they were here, and they were mad, and they're like, "We're on a trial," and so I'm like, "Okay, fine, pay me what you can." And then these rich people didn't end up paying me to get to all. I'm. It's like
Tony,
when,
you have got to get that money up front.
I
You
know.
need to hire me as your business
it's
manager.
like pizza delivery, though. They give me the story all the time because I always talk to pizza. Surprise, surprise! When people deliver my pizza, I talk to them about their job, and so if they say that you get really big tips from people that don't have that much money, and you'll have a really rich area and they don't tip you at all.
Yeah.
Like my son used to deliver pizza when he was much younger at the medical center, and he said that it was just a hassle because you had to park outside the hospital to
Oh,
get up there.
yeah.
And he goes, in the River Oaks area, not the River Oaks, it was the Westview area, same general medical center, rich, big, luscious, old houses, the old money. He goes, those people just don't tip.
That's
He said, it's crazy.
ridiculous.
It's so much work. But then you'll go to a kind of a middle class or a lower middle class where these people are hardworking people, blue
They
collar,
respect your
and
hard
they
work.
pay big tips.
Yeah,
He said, you
yeah.
just can't. It's just like the juries. You just don't know what you're going to get.
So
Looks
what
are
happened
deceiving.
with these
All right,
people
So
from
what
Dallas?
happened is with a Class C, generally you can be released to somebody that's there, and particularly if you're at a hotel, you would be released to the concierge. It was especially the Woodlands Resort, an expensive hotel where people even in town go to vacation just on their weekends, what have you. So they were staying at the Woodlands Resort. They came to some concert. I can't remember what the concert was, but it was a high dollar concert. They were dressed to the nines. They owned several large companies up in the Dallas area. And I hear from I used to be a landman with the company I worked for. The guy said, "Hey, Tony, I was working contract for him and doing some trials and what have you." He said, "Hey, my brother's got some problems over here. Can you look at it?" I'm like. And this was when I was still living in Houston. I'm like, oh, Montgomery County, please don't make me drive up there and do that. I'm like, well, okay, fine. And so I was like, oh, this is no problem. They went to the concert and they were walking across the, I guess when you go from the Cynthia Woods Pavilion, there's a walkway over to the Woodlands Resort. And they were walking to this, wherever they were going across a bridge. And there was basically a mall cop. And my client was singing one of the tunes from the deal. And granted, this guy is, and I'm sure he will not deny this, and nobody would. He's pretty obnoxious. He's in your face. And can you imagine, not when he's sober, when he's drunk, he is loud. He's one of these loud drunk
So
people.
he was drunk and
He
singing?
was absolutely drunk. There's no question about that. But
Okay.
he was not drunk out of control. He was just singing loud. He wasn't so drunk that he was falling down. He was drunk, happy, and just being
Yeah,
happy
but
in
you
himself.
shouldn't be able to arrest people because they're obnoxious or they get on your nerves.
Well, he was being happy, but he was not being obnoxious with this group. But this officer thought he was because he must have said something like, he must have said mall cop. He must have said something that
Yeah.
insulted this officer because he
Bart,
immediately
what's that?
Yeah, I
mall
forgot what
cop?
the movie was,
Yeah.
but he upset him, and so he came over to the group, and he ended up arresting this very well-off guy and his wife, and they missed their chartered flight back to Dallas because they were in jail in Montgomery County. They couldn't get a bond. I mean,
because they were walking.
they got arrested
close
for
to a
public
mall?
intoxication over to the Woodlands Resort deal. There was a bunch of people in the group, and this guy was mad. And police have a lot of authority, and he said, if you don't start behaving, you're going to get an assault of a public servant on top of it. And I think they did, and I think I got that dismissed. It was just bad. He made this guy mad. So there's another word of wisdom: do not make law officers that are in charge of the situation mad, because they can do whatever pretty much they want. And so and they do. They don't negotiate with them, particularly if you're drunk. And so this guy went over there, and he was, this obnoxious, kind of pompous guy, and used to people doing what he wants to do because he had plenty of money and would throw down and didn't mind talking about it. We ended up we couldn't get a plea negotiation. We ended up going to trial in JP Court over there off of Lakefront. And it was when Edie Connolly was still the judge over there.
Mhm.
I believe this may be the case for all jury trials in JP court, but I'm not sure. We got it was a court without record. At least in her court, she would not allow you to have a court reporter, to have it. You can swear in if you're a notary and have it recorded, and that's still under oath. You're under oath, but you cannot record it. And I thought it might have been because she didn't want to show that she made any errors, any rulings. But if you don't have a record, then you can't appeal on the record. So you just appeal, and you just have a brand new trial, which is the way it's pretty much going to go anyway for JP court. And so the wife won. The jury the jury said, well, we don't think that she was intoxicated. They shouldn't have arrested her. And then the jury said, no, we think he was intoxicated. And part of that was because he demanded, and I had no control over this guy. It was bad when I was client control. I said, you don't want to be kind of pompous and loud because you're going to turn the jury off because these are not all, multimillionaires, and they're not used to your kind of loud, out there personality. I said, I usually don't tell my clients this, but in your case, tell the truth, but you're going to have to tone it down about, 100 notches and not be so self-righteous about them arresting you, right? Because he was mad because they arrested him and they didn't have to arrest him.
Well, they didn't have to, and I don't blame
I was
him.
mad too.
Yeah.
But what he did was he got up there and he got down on his hands and knees and he was barking like a dog.
What? In the court? In front of the jury? Why was he doing that?
Because he was showing him what he did was he was walking across the Woodway thing, and he said he was barking like a dog, and the jury was like, no, he was drunk. You should. And I was like, no, jury, this is how he normally is. And so anyway, we lost and we were going to appeal it, but what should have happened, though, in the reality was the officers should have walked him if he really thought that group, because the reason they arrest you is like you're walking down a railroad track. You don't want to step in front of the train.
You're going to get hurt.
It's because it's for your own safety that you're putting
Yeah.
in jail with a Class C misdemeanor.
Right.
And there wasn't a safety issue here. He was in a high-dollar resort with a group of friends. He was coming. He wasn't going to hurt himself, even on the ground barking like a dog.
Yeah.
So the jury did not look kindly upon that, and I tried to work my magic, but there's only so much you can do when somebody
Well,
gets
do you
in front of the
remember
jury.
what happened to the guy? What was the
Well,
sentence?
we went and we Class C, it's just a fine. You're not getting a jail sentence. They already got a jail sentence, and it was waived because he did his time, and so it was just the principle. And so he wanted to sue the Woodlands Resort. I don't think it was called that back then. It was something else, but it was still the same. It was still that same area. He wanted to sue them for pain and suffering and all this other stuff, and I was like, that is when I learned, because he didn't pay me for the first trial. I was like, no. I said, up front, that trial that I can't even guarantee. You're like, if this kind of money, you should be able to guarantee it. I'm going to go to Race Horse Haynes. I'm like, I don't think he's alive anymore, but go for it. And, various other things he was saying. But we ended up appealing it to the Montgomery County Court. And then we didn't go forward because he wouldn't pay me. He wouldn't give me anything to go forward with the trial. It's like, you're going to probably lose this if you do anything close to what you did before. And the wife was also kind of pompous and sort of a, what do you call it, Gilligan's Island, kind of a Lovey kind of
Ginger.
way.
Oh, Lovey, yeah.
Everyone loves Lovey, but
Yeah.
she was also sort of, kind of snotty rich, and she wasn't doing well in front of the jury. So anyway, that was my story. Of public intoxication, there should not be arrest, but don't piss off the officer that can arrest you, because he still can arrest you.
Well, and officer, don't get so pissed off, I mean...
Well, I mean, if there's a conflict and somebody's got more authority than you, particularly somebody that
Yeah,
may
you
have become an
submit.
officer because
That's
they didn't
right.
get authority,
Yeah.
and he's a mall cop, then you're more than likely going to get arrested if you rub them the wrong way and you're not nice.
Yeah.
So I think the bottom line is to be polite to people
Yeah.
in general all the time.
Right.
Because if my guy had just been nice and not so pompous,
Right.
That would have been a slap on the wrist, and he would have walked home and walked over to his resort, and all that stuff didn't happen. All right. So how many more minutes do we have left in the show?
We have about one.
Oh my gosh. And we were going to get to gun questions. All right. I'm going to ask you this one question then, because I was surprised by the answer. How long is the waiting period to buy a handgun, shotgun, or rifle in
3
Texas?
days.
What do you think?
Or yes.
Station Manager Dick.
What?
How long is the waiting period to buy a handgun, shotgun, or rifle in Texas?
I imagine it's like 90 days or 30 days.
There's no waiting period.
Oh, that was a trick question.
Yes. Okay. I just moved to Texas. Do I have to register my firearms? Yes or no?
No.
No.
Yeah, right. Both of you know. No registration for firearms in Texas. I just bought a gun from someone in Texas. Do I need to transfer the gun to my name?
It's better to, but
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
probably
think you
not.
have
You're probably
to,
not
but you
legally
can.
required.
No, there is no state registration. So how do you, if there's no
Oh.
registration? So thus, there is no requirement to transfer the firearm in your name. Last question. What is required to purchase firearm in the state of Texas?
3-day waiting period and background check?
No, we just said there's no waiting period.
Oh, there's no waiting period.
Well, there is for some firearms because that's a quick question. Okay, the answer is you will need a valid state issued ID. Many firearms dealers will not sell to out-of-state residents. This is due to the
Tony, that
FLL's
answer's too long. We ran out of time.
Okay. All
Hey,
right.
guys, thanks for listening. You can catch us next week. We want to remind you to
serve God by serving others.
Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great week.
Thanks for checking out this show on Lone Star Community Radio, Montgomery County's community radio station. This show is owned and produced by Lone Star Community Radio and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. For more information about the show, to be a guest, or to sponsor, just contact the studio at 936-647-3776 to leave a message, or email us at lscrstudios@gmail.com.